In the world's greatest country, in its most pivotal state, lies Pennsylvania's Lehigh Valley, an economic hub that's as vibrant as it is ideologically eclectic. Its just over 700,000 residents will play a critical role in deciding the course of American leadership and thereby the world. Who are the thinkers, workers, and leaders that will decide our collective fate? Join me, Moshe Kurtz, as I walk through the valley and find out. Thank you, my friends, for joining me today as I walk through the valley with candidate Caren Lowrey, who is the Republican nominee running for Pennsylvania's 132nd legislative district. Caren, it's wonderful to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me today. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. Now, I always open up with essentially, this is your pitch to people who are listening. Why should you serve as the next state representative for the 132nd district?
Well, I am not a politician. I am just a mom. I was born and raised in this district. I am a parent of 3 in the school district in Parkland. I'm a Parkland alum myself. My family has owned and operated a small business serving other Lehigh Valley businesses. My husband now runs that. And also in the professional sphere, I am a certified recovery, education, and prevention specialist. So I work in Lehigh Valley schools alongside students, families, parents, educators. I see what's happening on the ground in real time, where Harrisburg is making decisions that are working or they're not working, where they're falling short. And I think a lot of the decisions being made aren't practical. And I think we need real world experience in these decisions and how they play out, practical solutions. Also, basically, I am in recovery, so as my job in recovery is to be of service to others. So that's what I focus my life on and my goals. And that's why I think I'd do well in 132nd District.
Absolutely. And I appreciate the quick biographical points, and we'll dig into that momentarily. But let me just ask one clarifying question, which is you're running for state representative. So clearly you must be identifying that there are some shortcomings, as you just mentioned, with the status quo. So what are you, in broad terms, we'll dig into the details soon, but in broad terms, what are you looking to fix that is currently broken or maybe not working optimally? I
don't think that things are working within the public school system. I don't think they're working as they should be. I also think, affordability is a huge thing. I think we need to focus on that. So that's another issue. The gas tax is another issue I'd like to work on. So those are just a few of the issues that I think that, I'm not backed by special interests. So essentially, I'm just running for the people. And I think a lot of what happens in Harrisburg is, they have what's called the Harrisburg fatigue, which is when the politicians stop listening to the concerns of the constituents and they start telling them how it is. And I think we need to get back to policies that will actually be, focused on the constituents in their districts.
So I think I could already get a little bit of an answer to the next question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. We're going to do what we always do on the show, and we're going to hop in a DeLorean and go back in time a little bit. And I wanted to find out a little bit about 10-year-old Caren. You said that you are a Lehigh Valley native. You grew up attending the Parkland School District, which is within the 132nd Legislative District, in case that wasn't clear for the listeners. So, did 10-year-old Caren always have political aspirations?
Absolutely not. 10-year-old Caren wanted to be Jennifer Grey from Dirty Dancing. But I actually wanted then to be Clarice Starling from Silence of the Lambs. So
oh, wow.
Yes. So my goal was always...
Bit of a shift over there.
Yeah. My goal was always criminal justice. I graduated with a degree in criminal justice. I worked in the Philadelphia prison system when I graduated. So politics was never in my, purview at all. And this is just something that naturally within the past 10 years, I got into legislation, I got into policy and activism, and that's kind of how I got here today. So definitely not something I thought I would be doing.
Yeah, definitely not easy by any stretch of the imagination to be working in the criminal justice system. My only small little taste was filling in for a chaplain for running a Passover Seder twice at Rikers Island, New York. And let's just say, because I don't drive on the Sabbath or on the holiday, so my colleague and I, we had to sleep over in the facility for 2 nights. And thankfully we weren't in the cell block. Yeah, we weren't in the cell block, but the accommodations weren't that much better, to be honest. So, God bless you for your work that you were doing. Now, one thing I actually wanted to dig into, and you just mentioned this, but it originally came to my attention. There's a Facebook page, What's Going On in the Lehigh Valley, and they had mentioned that you are a drug educator and prevention specialist, and also an advisory member of the Lehigh County Drug and Alcohol Advisory Board. So I think you alluded to there being a little bit of a backstory to this career choice, and just help us understand what brought you to that particular niche.
So I have always focused on helping others. Originally, like I said, I did social work in the prison system. Serving others has always been my purpose. I got it. Obviously, I'm in recovery. I'm about to celebrate 8 years. And prevention has been a passion of mine, building systems, not looking at, basically a problem and trying to fix it, once it happened. We want to get to the root cause of the problem. So I go into the schools and I educate the students on mental health, on behavioral health. I do a lot of drug education. And, it all comes back to being of service to others and helping them. And prior to, focusing on the legislation I do now in schools, I was always involved in drug policy legislation. So that is how I got onto the Lehigh County Drug and Alcohol Advisory Board. So
that's really interesting because, bringing up ideas like mental health and helping people who are in recovery, correct me if I'm mistaken, that sounds like something that could actually be a bipartisan issue.
Oh, absolutely. It's more along the lines of the Democratic Party. Yeah.
I didn't want to.
Absolutely. I was very involved in harm reduction advocacy. That all shifted after October 7th. So that's a whole other story. But yes, that's one of the things where I agree more with the Democratic Party than I do with the Republican Party.
Interesting. So I want to we'll get to the October 7th and we'll get to the differences with the Republican Party a little bit later in the interview. But one thing that I think is certainly on every citizen's mind in the Lehigh Valley is, I call it it's the boogeyman. You find someone on the street just whisper in the ear and you say data center, and then they jump up and scream. I think some people are joking about there being data center Halloween costumes.
Oh my gosh.
The unfortunate thing for us is that the Jewish holiday of Purim, where we wear our costumes, is in the springtime, so all the good jokes are going to be taken by those who observe Halloween, so they will be old by then, but maybe I'll get a discount. I don't even know what a data center costume looks like, actually. I'm curious to see what people come up with. Maybe just a guy in a suit and, writing not nice things about the citizens of the Lehigh Valley. But anyway, rather than me give you my perspective on it, I think I've seen on social media, you've been very involved showing up to all the different kind of town halls about data centers. So, give us a little bit of an overview. What do you see as the current situation and how are you trying to address it?
The current situation is that data centers are flooding our state. And we are putting them, for whatever reason, they seem to be going in neighborhoods next to schools. The one, Atlas is proposed across the street from Parkland. The one in Allentown was proposed across the street from the Camelot School for Children, which is for neurodivergent and autistic children. Just last week or 2 weeks ago, they proposed this other one in Coca-Cola Park, again next.
For real? Oh, where the Iron Pigs play.
Yes, again, across the street from a school. So I understand we need AI, it's the future, but having these where they're being placed, it's about responsible development and rushing them into the state without thinking about where they're going, where they're being placed, and giving the municipalities time to catch up with their coding.
Wait, why are they focusing on properties that are next to schools? Do you have any sense of why they want to build? I imagine they're not trying to harm children deliberately.
I think it has to go with the developers. I think that, the developers basically want to put them everywhere, and they're looking for areas where they have, lax laws and townships haven't essentially caught up to the zoning. So I think it's an issue of money, honestly.
Right. But what exactly, from your perspective, we've talked about data centers on the show. It's a Lehigh Valley centered podcast, so it's hard not to talk about data centers, though, of course, there are communities throughout the United States that are grappling like we are. Just help me and help our listeners understand what is what is causing the visceral reaction to the data centers? From my perspective, and I'm looking to be educated, there are warehouses all over the Lehigh Valley, and warehouses require construction, and there's noise that could be made with trucks going in and out. So what's the concern with data centers in particular?
It is environmental concerns. I think, with these diesel backup generators, we don't know the harm they're going to cause, like in the neighborhoods, in the schools, how, it's going to, they say thermal inversion, it's actually going to raise the temperature of the surrounding area.
Oh boy.
Noise is another concern. Like with Atlas, it's a 3-mile noise range. So that's also an issue, especially with students in buildings. I mean, you talk about neurodivergent children, you talk about kids with ADD and how it's going to affect them. It's going to play out in real time. I think also the employees, like if they don't actually employ a lot of people. I mean, construction wise they do, but then they leave, and a data center only employs 50 people. So
once it's fully constructed, you just have some IT people who are essentially maintaining it.
Correct, and security guards. And what they also say is within 10 years, they're going to be obsolete. So in China,
data centers are going to be obsolete.
Yeah, well, they're going to be, Elon Musk is already,
putting them in space.
Putting them in space.
So then they could come crashing down from orbit.
Essentially, yeah. And, in Finland, they put them underground. In China, they put them in the sea. So they're saying within 10 years, technology is advancing so rapidly that within 10 years, this is just going to be a building. And then we'll never get that farmland back.
Interesting. So even though
It'll
there
be an
are
empty warehouse, essentially.
Oh yeah, we definitely need more of those in Pennsylvania.
There you go.
But what I understand is that we're recording toward the end of August 2026, and Governor Shapiro just signed an executive order which was supposed to rein in the mass and rapid development of data centers in Pennsylvania in general. So it sounds like the governor is addressing the matter. Am I wrong on that?
I think he's addressing it. I don't think he's taken enough action. I personally would like to see a moratorium, an 18-month moratorium like Governor Hochul did, so that municipalities have time to, enact legislation that will benefit and protect their townships. I think that also it doesn't remove the tax exemption, which is a huge deal. And that's originally why they're all flooding into the state. There was a tax exemption on the sales tax, on the data centers,
right.
Sales tax. And that's why they all came to the state. And it doesn't address that whatsoever, this executive order. So essentially, they're still going to come here because they have the tax exemption.
What's interesting to me, and correct me if I'm missing something, just like we were talking about the mental health for a moment there, it sounds like data centers, which is just a kind of like a quality of life issue. I don't mean to minimize it. Shouldn't that also be something that's bipartisan in nature? I mean, is that something that fundamentally a Republican or a Democrat would be opposed to or pro because of their ideological affiliations?
74% of Americans are opposed to data centers. That's the latest polling. So, no one wants them in their neighborhoods. No one wants them next to schools. So it is a bipartisan issue.
So basically, if you're running for office and you're pro data centers, you basically shouldn't bother running.
Yeah, essentially you should not.
Okay.
But yeah, this is a bipartisan issue everyone's against.
Hey friends, a quick request. If you are enjoying this show, please tap the subscribe button on Spotify, Apple, or whatever platform you're using. It costs you nothing, and it helps more listeners benefit from the same content that you enjoy. Thanks for your support. And with that, back to our show. Now, there's kind of like a recurring question that's been behind a number of the things that we just talked about that I'd love to drill in on, which is kind of going a little bit back to Caren the person. So you're running as the nominee for the Republican Party against State Rep Mike Schlossberg, who is the Democrat. So have you always been a Republican all your life? Did something change throughout your life that made you affiliate with the Republican Party?
I have always been a registered Republican. I was not very much into politics, early on, but I was always registered Republican. So that is something, I believe in fiscal responsibility. There's a lot of, policies that I agree with. There are some that obviously I don't agree with, but yes, I have always fallen in line with the Republican Party more.
Interesting. So you mentioned the fiscal conservatism. I get the sense, I could be off base. I actually live in the Allentown city limits. You're actually in South Whitehall area in the Parkland School District. So my sense, and I could be off base on this, so you'll tell me, is that you'll have a lot of fiscal conservatives, but on the social issues, not necessarily as right-wing.
Correct.
So I'm curious kind of where you align on that. And just to kind of maybe bring it out, I was doing a little bit of my own research. So Senator Jared Coleman, he represents the 16th State Senate District, which will overlap with your jurisdiction should you be elected. We actually had Mark Pinsley, who's the Lehigh County Controller. He's running as the Democrat against him in the election. We're still waiting on, we issued Senator Coleman an invitation, so we're looking forward to him joining in the show, God willing, in the future. But he was part of a group of Republican senators who actually passed a Senate Bill number 7 in the 2023 through 2024 legislative session. And the bill, it passed the Senate, which is Republican controlled. It died in the Democrat controlled House, predictably. It basically was pushing for what some would argue was censorship or more supervision over what they term sexually explicit content found in library collections and curricula in the Parkland School District and surrounding areas. I think this also was probably targeted to pro-LGBT content as well. And they set up basically measures that they established an opt-in system, and they also had provisions that there should be alternative, non-explicit instructional materials for students whose parents chose not to opt in. So I don't know how hard this has hit the Parkland School District, but I know in the Lehighton area, I know in the Perkiomen area, this has already been a huge debate. Republicans, for the most part, I see, are arguing that there's inappropriate material that children should not be exposed to, certainly should not be indoctrinated or inculcated with. On the other hand, many in the Democrat Party, they are arguing that this constitutes censorship and that children should be exposed to a wide range of ideas, even if they go against their religious and moral principles or the principles of their families. So very high level, we don't need to get into the nitty-gritties of the bill. It's fine. I'm not a legal expert either, so I'm not going to pretend I know all the ins and outs. But what would your vision be for issues like this should you be elected?
My vision would be institutional neutrality in the curriculum. I fully support that. I think we need to keep politics out of the curriculum. I think we need to get back to the basics, reading, writing, arithmetic. Our proficiency scores, not in Parkland, we can look at Allentown, are below this national average. So I think if we were to focus on that and not focus on politics and get into that, I think we would be better off with all of our assessments, like in terms of school assessments.
Right. No, that definitely makes sense. And I think many people would agree going back to basics. I forget exactly where Pennsylvania rates in terms of education and reading and writing, but when we had Treasurer Garrity on, it was, the ranking?
I think we are third, don't quote me on this, but I want to say 38th, but I don't know about that.
That's not on the higher end. Let's just put it that way. When we had Treasurer Stacey Garrity, who's the Republican gubernatorial candidate, she painted a very dismal picture. But I don't want to harp on this issue too much, but I guess the question to me, and I wonder these things as well as a clergy person in the community, there's these things where they have drag queen story hour at places. And that to me is not just simply putting a book on the shelf that someone could check out at their own volition. That's institutional support for a certain way of life that frankly many people, unsurprisingly, an Orthodox rabbi is not a huge fan of, to put it mildly. So, what would your approach be to stuff like that?
I don't agree with that. I don't think the schools are a place where we need to, to be honest, why can't we just focus on what you learn in the curriculum? And that's, and also we could get into the nitty-gritty of the curriculum, but I don't think that's appropriate place to be having them at libraries, teaching children. You can do that on your own time. I don't understand why, schools are bringing outside. There's no oversight in this, basically, and that's what the issue is. We need to have oversight. There needs to be strict guidelines, and that right now, there aren't. And that's on the Pennsylvania Department of Education.
All right. Very well said. You already started talking about this. We were discussing this a few minutes earlier, but I also just want to get a little bit more meat on the bones for this, which is you're a Republican. You've been a Republican all of your life, though the Republican Party, which is not news to anybody, has shifted much over the years. It's come a long way from being the party of, George W. Bush, of being, Mitt Romney, even though he never got elected as president, but being the nominee, or McCain. So where do you find yourself in the Republican Party? What are the core issues you agree with? And where do you see yourself differing from the party line?
I agree with the party on a lot of issues. I see myself more as, center right, to be honest with you, than I am, far right. So I agree with them on certain issues, like, we talked about fiscal responsibility, accountability in government, which, could be lacking on both sides, you could say. In terms of where I disagree with them, I disagree with them on especially drug policy, which is actually shifting more to the left. So I have to be happy about that.
So what is the current drug policy that you take issue with?
Well, I take issue with...
You're like, I need 2 more hours.
Honestly, because I'm used to doing drug podcasts. So I take issue... Well, I will give Trump credit because he has come a long way in terms of research for certain drugs. Like there's, I could talk about like Ibogaine, which is a drug that he has basically, scheduled. He took it off the ban list. So now we can do research on that. So my issue is how we focus on drug policy. I'm more, and we're talking statewide. I agree with legalization of recreational marijuana. I know that's not something the right likes to talk about, or, they strongly oppose that. I fall usually on the left with that. I think that it needs to be legalized. I think harm reduction, which they don't like, I agree with that. So I tend to fall more to the left in terms of drug policy, federally, or statewide. That's more, and other social issues as well, mental health, that type of thing. Interesting.
So it's funny, and not funny, but it sounds like you might actually align with your opponent a little bit at least on those particular issues. Mm-hmm. So, okay, let's one more dicey question, and then we'll get to the fun, and we'll get to the final questions after that. So this is perhaps the diciest question I'll ask in the interview, in case things weren't already at that point. A few episodes ago, we had Lehigh County Controller Mark Pinsley on. As I mentioned, he's running for State Senate 16, and if he manages to unseat the current incumbent, Jared Coleman, you guys may very well be working together and having overlapping jurisdictions. So I asked him a question, which was about, he made statements about what's going on in Israel, what's going on in Gaza. He wrote an article where he made a very extreme claim about things like genocide and used very heavy terminology. Now, I didn't challenge him on the facts on the ground because I focus on the local level. This is as I walk through the valley, not as I walk through planet Earth. Maybe we'll get there one day. Who knows? So I'm going to ask a question from the exact same angle that I asked him, which is, I might be going on a limb over here. I think you guys are probably diametrically opposed on the Israel-Palestine conflict. Is that a fair thing to say?
Yeah, it's fair.
Okay, I think that's fair enough to say. So I noticed that also in your social media, to a certain degree in your campaigning, there's been a lot of pro-Israel messaging that came out, which is on the opposite side of his. So again, we're not gonna talk foreign policy because that's more the federal level. But that actually brings me to my next question, which is, you're running for a state representative seat. So why is it that something which is a foreign policy consideration, which is within the purview of the federal government, why is that featured within your campaign?
Well, it shouldn't be a statewide issue. Let me start there. However, it is. And it is because of the anti-Semitism and the anti-Zionism that I see working in the schools on a daily basis and how it plays out. For whatever reason, people want to take this issue, which, like you said, is a foreign issue, and, bring it into the schools, bring it into their homes. And I see how it plays out. I've been the victim of anti-Semitism. I'll say anti-Zionism too, because now anti-Semitism actually manifests as anti-Zionism. It has become normalized in socially acceptable behavior.
How is anti-Semitism manifesting here?
It's manifesting as anti-Zionism. So.
Right. So you just paint us I'm not doubting it. I just paint us the picture. What does it look like?
It looks like kids carving swastikas into rubber cell phone cases and gifting it to me in the classroom.
Oh, wow.
It's, people can't see this, but it's about like these hand gestures. I'm just giving you examples of what's actually happening.
Hand gestures.
They're calling my son Drew. I probably shouldn't say this. They call my son Drew the Jew at school.
Oy.
So people aren't aware of this because students, aren't speaking up about it. It's not being reported for fear of retaliation or whatever it is. But in the public schools, this is occurring on a daily basis. And I can give you an example. Just last week, a group of parents and myself noticed that in the Pennsylvania Department of Education glossary it's the Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging glossary. They had
the what?
The Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging glossary.
Is that like a legal document?
It's what the Pennsylvania Department of Education uses.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So we noticed that they were using the Jerusalem Declaration as the definition of anti-Semitism, which actually excuses it. So I
may need you to break that one down for us. What's the Jerusalem definition?
So basically what it does is it excuses anti-Zionism and allows for it, which is how, all this is playing out. The Jew hatred today is playing out as anti-Zionism. So, what anti-Zionism or Zionism is. So basically what it is doing is excusing it and allowing it in the school system, in the curriculum. And we had that change within 24 hours. We mounted public pressure. We had it removed. And hopefully now it should be replaced with IRA, which is the International Holocaust Remembrance Act of Anti-Semitism. Mm-hmm. That is what is adopted in 38 states. It is not adopted in Pennsylvania. And this is what the whole state of education, like Pennsylvania Department of Education, uses for training, uses for teachers.
And what does that definition say?
So that definition, well, it's not so much a definition. There's 11 examples, and that has to be included with the definition.
I'm not going to give you a pop quiz to recite all of them from the top of your head.
So basically, if you are saying that, Jews, aren't indigenous to Israel and they have the right to exist, then that's basically a form of anti-Semitism. Mm-hmm. Because now, like I said, it's not just anti-Semitism, it's anti-Zionism. And that's what we have an issue with.
Mm-hmm. So just to summarize, because I don't want to put words in your mouth, mm-hmm. my understanding is the reason that the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, which seemingly is a foreign policy issue, is pertinent for your campaign is because people have brought it down to the school level. People have brought it down to the local level. And so therefore it necessitates a response on the local level. Mm-hmm. Is that essentially the argument?
Yes, yeah. And it's, that's exactly it.
I understand
That's probably convoluted, but
I think that answered my question. I appreciate it.
Like how I explained it very
obviously, just like you said, there could be a whole separate podcast just about drugs and substances. There could be many separate podcasts just about this issue, but it's not within our purview. But was there something else you were going to say?
Well, I was going to tell a story, but
I like stories.
Okay, so I will give you a story. I was at the polls for the primary, and there was this girl there, and we were talking about data centers and everything was great. I actually wrote an article about this, and then she everything was going fine, and then when I told her I was a Republican, she started screaming at me. And what had brought this was she saw my Hebrew name necklace. And this is why, she saw my Hebrew name necklace. She asked me what it was. I said, it's Hebrew. And she goes, oh. And she started screaming like free Palestine. And I'm like, we never even discussed this. Like, you just saw my Hebrew name necklace and you just started screaming like, F Palestine. And Mark Pinsley's son was there, and that's why I also say, like, it has nothing to do with Judaism. It's now just become like an anti-Zionism movement, and it's, turning it into Jew hatred.
Right. So old Jews are guilty by association,
Exactly,
even
guilty.
by having a Hebrew necklace.
So it doesn't really matter if you're, anti-Zionist, Zionist. If you're Jewish, they look at it all the same in my mind.
Right. A lot. You see this anti-Semitism, like people throwing things at Hasidim walking in Brooklyn, and that's not a particularly Zionistic community, but it seems to have spread further as well. All right, we're going to lighten things up a little bit over here. I'm experimenting with a new question. You get to be the first person who answers this. So I like asking people, what's something fun that they do in the Lehigh Valley? And then also, on top of that, I'm going to give you the opportunity to recommend something to our audience, which could be either a song, a movie, or a book that you have currently consumed.
Okay, well, what do I like to do in the Lehigh Valley? I do go to Dorney Park a lot with...
We haven't made it there yet. I can't believe it's right down the street from us. We haven't made it.
I mean, that's the summertime, so I do tend to go to Dorney Park a lot with my kids. So that's something fun. If you haven't been there, you should definitely go. We have season passes, so we go there all the time. So that's something fun. You have to figure out what hours to go, because you obviously don't want to go on the weekend. You go in the morning.
I am scared of going when there's 100 camps that have descended upon the park.
There you go. So
I don't want to lose my kids there.
there are a lot of camps there. So that's something fun we like to do. And then in the winter, we just basically hunker down. There's nothing much we do.
Yeah, there's not a lot to do. Well, we've been going around to all the farmers markets in the valley, and kind of what I'm afraid of is, wait a minute, I love checking out all in Coopersburg and Emmaus and Allentown, Hellertown. And then I realized, wait a minute, what am I going to do once it's the winter time? It's got to be something fun to do around here. Is there skiing?
There's skiing. I don't really like to ski. I have what's called Raynaud's disease. So
you got to wear the gloves all the time.
I hibernate. So
I get that. I totally get that.
I'm surprised you know what that is.
My wife has it. Yeah. So it's okay. So a song, a movie, or a book. You can recommend one of the three.
Well, a song I can recommend more recent. My daughter and I are very into a group called Cat's Eye. So it's like an international pop group. So I'm going to say their song Gnarly, which I probably, has explicit words in it. So
that goes back to our earlier question about content in the curriculum.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I can say Billy Joel's Allentown, just,
of course. That's
nostalgic.
Of course. That's a required response for a local essay. There you go. We'll give you points for that. So Caren, I've had the opportunity. I'm very grateful for your time. And I think, I certainly am walking out of this knowing you a lot better than I did walking in, because frankly, we crossed paths. We spoke briefly before, but for the most part, all the information I had about you was through social media, which kind of, reduces you to 30 to 60 second clips and sound bites and quotes and articles. So here's the question. If you were to sit down with someone else for a 30 to 40 minute discussion, what do you think they would misunderstand about you walking in? And what would you hope they would know and appreciate more about you when they walk out?
I think because I'm a Republican, I'm misunderstood just based on that fact alone. I think most Republicans are put into a box, and I would like people to have the opportunity to sit down, talk to me about the issues, see where I, fall. And then they'll understand, it's more about practical solutions, what's best for the entire community, and not just, right versus left.
Right. You don't strike me as an ideologue.
Yeah.
And this should make it relatively easy. I don't want to, maybe I shouldn't say that. This should make it relatively easy still to answer the next question, the penultimate one, which is looking at the other side of the aisle, looking at the Democrats. What is something that they're doing that you could admire?
This is very easy for me. What I admire from them is their ability to organize, network, mobilization. They have built, and whether this is, funding or what, this infrastructure where they can get out and they can mobilize. Their capacity building is extremely admirable. I can give you an example, just what happened in this special election in Butler County, I think last week, which was the 30+ R district of the special election.
Oh, yes, I saw this.
They had Democrats coming, and this is a 30+ Republican district, and there was a special election. They had Democrats coming out from, all over the state, going to there just to get out the vote. And they flipped that seat. Now we'll see how it plays out.
Very thin margin, if I remember.
It was 88 votes.
But the Republicans coasted on the assumption that they would win.
Correct. Now we'll see what happens come November, but the Republicans need to learn to mobilize, get out the vote. We're very fragmented in certain places, and I think that, the Democrats, and this is by no fault of this is our own fault, the Republicans. The Democrats have figured out a way to get out the vote and to mobilize. Their grassroots organizing is truly remarkable, and that's something that we are lacking.
Yeah, why is it? Why do you think people are jumping to knock doors for Democrats but not for Republicans? Is it a brand problem?
I think it's a brand problem. I also think that it's a funding issue. I think that, they have a lot more money that's being used for door knocking and grassroots efforts, whereas we do not. And I think also it's branding. I think it has a lot to do with branding. And I think we as a party are more fragmented, whereas the Democrats are not. And that's something that, I truly, from someone who's, in activism, I truly admire it.
Interesting. Now for our final question, which is, we just passed the 250th anniversary of the United States of America. Caren, what does that mean to you?
I think it's gratitude, and that what we have accomplished in the past 2.5 centuries, that's a short amount of time when you look at, history. So I am extremely grateful for everything that we have accomplished so far, but I also think we have a responsibility to protect those freedoms and everything, strengthen it, and build upon that for future generations.
Well said. Caren Lowrey, thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate you joining me as I walk through the valley. Thank you for joining me as I walk through the valley. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to rate and subscribe to our show. If you have questions or would like to book a live recording or have a speaking request, please email rabbi@sonsofisrael.net. This is Moshe Kurtz. I look forward to having you join me next time as I walk through the valley.